Well, from midnight, motorists will pay more at the pumps. The price of 93 and 95 octane petrol increases by R1.71 a litre. Let that sink in. While diesel goes up by between R2.76 and R2.84, illuminating paraffin increases by R2.78 a litre. LP gas is up by R2.26 a litre. Now, this is the highest fuel increase since July last year. The Fuel Retail Association says these increases will impact on businesses and, of course, the pockets of consumers. It's called on government to find alternative ways to deal with the increases. Well, for more of this, we're joined by the CEO of the Liquid Fuels Wholesalers Association of South Africa, Peter Morgan. Peter, good evening to you and welcome. This is not good news at all for an already strained public. We're paying for fuel increases whether you use the roads or not because of the increased food prices and so on. What is the effect on you as wholesalers?
You know, independent wholesalers, their biggest op cost is actually the cost of diesel. So when we see a cost of diesel like we see tonight, that means the cost of all our members' businesses going up. But it's a regulated industry, and we can only recover the cost of diesel in a calculation that happens once a year. But I know it's not going to give anybody comfort, but it's not the highest fuel prices we've had. It's just been such a massive increase. My mind actually goes past the current price, and it says my real concern is the whole issue of security of supply. Our economy runs on fuel. If we don't have fuel, then our problems are going to be bigger than load shedding. Really, they will be. We know currently that we are importing more and more because a number of our refineries are not working. And when you have importing like we have, we should actually have strategic stocks in the country to help us smooth out the imports. Because what we're seeing now is almost spike pricing. Spike pricing is very difficult to deal with.
Okay, so this is interesting. I'm going to come back to the fuel outage perspective, which you've actually written about extensively. I mean, I've read articles of yours going back to at least a year or more ago, warning about this possibility in terms of shortage. But for us to understand what's fueling this jump, 93 and 95 octane, 171 cents per litre more and so on, it's not just the hike in Brent crude oil or the rand-dollar exchange that is responsible. Just take us inside some of the other contributing factors.
You see, the contributing factors for this, there's a very small one, and that was the 5 cents a litre for the pump attendant's margin increase. That really doesn't have any effect on the massive price increases. Our price, our basic fuel price, is actually an import parity price. So it says, what would we pay for fuel if we weren't refining? So even if we're not refining or not, effectively our price model says, what would it cost us to import finished product, which is what we're buying it at now. So it's all the global issues that are actually affecting that. And our currency is a big one. I mean, crude is up to almost $90. I was expecting to see some softening of the crude with China's economy starting to go into a bit of a boil, but we're not seeing it. And then I reminded myself the other day that OPEC was designed and instituted back in the 60s to do nothing else but to get the price of crude as high as possible for those who have crude. And I'm starting to ask myself that perhaps this global narrative that says we're going away from carbon fuels into other fuels, maybe it's a case of let's make hay while the sun shines and get as much out of crude oil as we can before this market dries up.
Yeah, I mean, an interesting observation is, you know, part of what's driving the reason that I read was around production levels being lower from the Saudi perspective. And, you know, one just thinks in the context of BRICS, whether there could be any preferential arrangements, particularly to partners on the African continent, with specific reference to South Africa, for example. But perhaps that's a bigger discussion for another day. What alternatives, Peter, could there be to mitigate the steep hikes?
You know, for me, I don't know about mitigating the hikes, but perhaps it's time we had a discussion that says, is a once a month price change the correct one? Should we have it less often, more often? Should we be using rolling averages? What will that do to the slate? Who's going to be affected the most? we must be conscious of the fact if we start talking about more and more price changes, then it puts the retail network under some severe pressure with more regular price changes. But what worries me is there's some strange pricing that I'm seeing every time there's big price decreases like we have now. And you're right, I have been talking about strategic stocks for a while. But I had a conversation this weekend that really concerned me. I got a message from the marketplace that one of the oil majors didn't have any diesel inland because their diesel was in the pipeline and the other oil majors hadn't injected petrol to push their diesel out. Therefore, they had no product inland for this weekend. And as to the best of my knowledge, there's still nothing as of now. So for me, there needs to be a bigger discussion. There needs to be more understanding from those who are importing that says that the behavior of just-in-time importing is actually putting the whole of South Africa's security of supply at risk. And we need to be having much more detailed discussions on the big picture.
Yeah,
when you talk about changing prices, it's so difficult in a global market. If we only had our own under the ground, or the ones that we had we could get to and use, it would probably give us a very different discussion tonight.
Well, we've been talking a big game around, not pursuing business as usual and seeing how dependent we are on this, on fuel to literally generate this economy and keep the lights on in many ways. If you look at how, diesel's being consumed in terms of Eskom. But could we be seeing, based on this anecdote you've just shared with us, Peter Morgan, the beginnings of what you had warned about around fuel outages? And we've only got about 40 seconds or so. So if you can, just quickly just connect that if it is connected.
You see, one of the principles that I live by is never be right, be part of the solution. And that's what I'm saying now, that the red flags are being waved. We need to have these intense, serious discussions about how and why. If we talk about 30 days strategic stock, I crunched some numbers a few seconds ago. And with the expected petrol volumes, that's 738 million litres of strategic stock we should have in the country, finished product. And with diesel, it's over 1 billion litres for 30 days. We don't have that. And if we're importing through ships just in time that can have weather problems outside of harbours, that creates rationing. Rationing has become quite a norm in our industry. So I think we need to get past that and start talking about South Africa Incorporated and how and why we're going to get the security of supply corrected and make sure it's there so we don't ever have to worry about, having no product to run our economy.